you've got that Wolver gene in you, and you can just roll out of an invisible boundary.
Well, it's going to be round one, Hell's Heaven. This has typically been what Virtus.pro like, running elements of the res composition. We've even seen Phi go over to the Starlord, even without that res composition, due to being banned out of some of his favorite hero picks. The Torch is likely not going to be able to make it through the pick and ban system, as AMER Frost is going to be immediately removed for Peps, as Peps will be able to secure themselves one-sided Magneto, however.
Yeah, one-sided Magneto, definitely a big asset, especially when we know how DRP plays with that as well. Of course, as always, we're going to be starting off on Domination. And it looks like Virtus.pro are going for tried and true, just letting Fincy dominate the battlefield on AMER Frost.
Yeah, there goes Sparker's Psylocke, but he's gonna be more than happy to potentially flex over to that Adam Warlock, as now we get to see the bans come through at the same time. Virtus.pro are going to be removing Hardest's Punisher. It looks like a duelist who can very quickly generate into that final judgment, and even with all of the defensive capabilities that you have of something like the res composition, can very quickly be torn through with the damage that a Punisher off of a Terror Cape hit is able to provide.
Okay, a low-key protect here. We could be seeing a double Eternal Bond come out from the side of Virtus.pro, but shutting down Nevix's ability to roam in the backline will be quite valuable with the removal of the... Oh, okay. Getting rid of Adam is somewhat interesting. This is going to, like, shut down potentially the res composition, but I feel like Virtus.pro, like, when they have the option, they prefer to run the double duelist. And they generally pivot to a res when they're kind of forced to it.
Yeah, Fire's Human Torch is actually still safe too, currently, as Peps are going to be able to protect one character, so Cloak and Dagger, so no one-sided Cloak and Dagger, which is a strategy that Virtus.pro have started using against their opponents come week 2, after Rad actually were able to deal them their losses with a one-sided Cloak and Dagger pick coming out from Fate, as Luna Snow is now going to be taken out of rotation for Peps' side if Virtus.pro decide to lock this in, but then again, it's actually not immediately locked, so it does look like there was a little bit of discussion, debate. I wonder if they were thinking about potentially taking Leaf's Kraken impacts away, given the fact that Virtus.pro have secured that Loki, which means that the doppelgangers are going to supply an awful lot of resets for the Winter Soldier.
Remember, guys, in our Ignite bans, they're one-sided. So if it's not a mirrored ban on both sides, only one team has access to that hero or villain to bring out their whole kit against this. I'm not surprised to see Nevix move over onto the Hulk, considering that Captain America's banned out. Similar mobility, but also allows for talented Namor players to really get a lot of damage done.
Yeah, and they've also been able to secure the Luna Snow too, which means one-shot potential up against Larry when he uses the Cloak and Dagger Eternal Bond. So you are going to have to be careful about that one, but then again, Peps prioritized the Magneto over the AMER, so they should be able to utilize the Bulwark and mitigate that one-shot capacity against their strategist if they're able to coordinate the cooldowns.
Yeah, considering knowing that they're going up against a Meteor M, we'll have to see if Virtus.pro opt into the Cloak and Dagger here. Slightly, I imagine we'd probably see a load of Key Luna just for classic backline that Virtus.pro got so much value out of previously.
Team Peps are actually going to be running the Ultron, so triple strategist lineup coming on through from them. Full pocket on Hardest and Leaf, so that they can have the space that the duelists are going to be looking for, as Beetle on that Captain America is going to be going into the backline solo to just play Disruption.
And Nevix might be just assigned to constantly marking Beetle here. Just making sure that Dredro is constantly free to pump out these heals on the Luna Snow. Already the Metallic Bulwark has been used here to allow Leaf to go on forward. Look at that full pocket going onto Leaf as well. You can see the Ultron drone sitting on him over there. And Leaf is going to be in a position to really shut down these squids rather quickly, which is going to nerf the ult generation that Spark is going to have to try and work with here.
Yeah, but Beetle's not getting to do anything. Like you said, he's being full marked by Nevix, which means that Sparker is free to keep up the pressure on all of the flyers in the sky, and Fire is also being able to zone out two of the strategists coming through from Peps' back line, and that is going to result in both of the Vanguards going down.
All right, Leaf feeling the pressure here, gets both the Guardian Shield and the bubble. However, the grab from Fincy is all that you need. Having to fly low now is hardest just to try and stop that point going over too quickly.
Larry is going to have Eternal Bond, but for Peps, it's potentially going to have to just be used to give them a free passage into that fight. They don't have a Punisher to be able to just play right in the midst of it. And Aura Stealer is actually going to be swapping on over to the Mantis, so now we have even more damage boost potential. We forgo the shield, but the 12% damage boost can mean that Leaf and Hardest's damage output just spiked drastically.
Well, it's certainly going to be a great way to try and make this Rage of Ultron all the more deadly. Hardest opens up with it, and Cypher is going to be answering out, oh, with a copy onto the Eternal Bond, actually stealing away the enemy's Cloak and Dagger. We know that Virtus.pro love to play it. It's going to be Larry in the back. Druidra could be in trouble here if he get hit with the Terror Cape, and indeed Larry quick to follow up on that one. But now Sparker on the off angle notices that the unfortunate movement of the point has separated Team Peps from their strategist ultimate. The healing won't be delivered as easily, but Flyers can always just roam up into it if they're so inclined. Team Peps get a quick flip.
Yeah, get a quick flip as Virtus.pro didn't want to commit the Horn of Proteus given the fact that Druidra went down, so no damage boost, one-shot potential. DRP is going to be able to hold the space with Meteor M and then throws it directly at the Hulk, and Nevix is taken out of his ultimate form and into the banner, into the respawn room now, as Virtus.pro have not been able to find the damage to take Peps down.
Yeah, Fi really feeling the heat as Leaf starts to erode the space that Human Torch was counting upon. And for now, Virtus.pro is back to the drawing board until Nevix returns.
Finzi should be able to open this up with Psionic Seduction, but Peps should be able to hide behind the Strange Shield as well as the distance. There's an awful lot of really good terrain that you can use. The pillars around the point itself to dodge the LOS of that AMER ultimate, but it really is going to be up to Sparker to coordinate the fate of both worlds. This Horn of Proteus needs to be huge.
Supernova popped out here by Leaf, sieging that backline. Has to worry about the Sonic Seduction. Good rotation around the pillar, using that physical cover to the best of their ability, and DRP also avoids being seduced in their own right. Metallic Bulwark going the way of Leaf, and now the Rage of Ultron will be added into the mix. Sminty needs to retreat into the midst of all of this. Beetle finds nothing but Nevix when it comes to the Eye of Agamemnon, but still the focus fire is good even within all of that. Aura Stealer, a victim of a damage boosted Horn of Proteus, but Larry managed to escape utilizing their own Eternal Bond. Now it's Saipe's turn to roll on forward. The dance floor has been lit on up. Team Peps are in a fantastic position, but Spark's trying to turn it around here. The Monstro spawn. They've found the mechanical terror of Ultron themselves, and Virtus.pro are back in control.
Yeah, DRP couldn't commit Meteor M, knowing that fight is so close to Supernova, and that flip does come through. However, there's still 2 fights for Virtus.pro now to take. One more and they'll put them equal to Peps' percentage, so there is a little bit of downtime for Peps to potentially build up a win condition. Another Soul Resurgence paired up with that Rage of Ultron, potentially the Eternal Bond, but they have to be so careful about how they approach the point this time around, because that poke coming on through from both the Torch and that Namor is absolutely brutal.
All right, the poke just got even more brutal. However, great eating up of the flame tornadoes by DRP. Oh, what a block coming through in midair by Sparker, using the Blessing of the Deep to eat up all of that danger coming through from a Meteor M. I believe it's a constant grab here from Nevix onto the Ultron. Manages to survive and get back up into the air. Looking down over the battlefield, sees that Beetle is in trouble, has the Eye of Agamotto, but no chance to pop it. Grabbed by the throat by Fincy, and the remainder of the bears just look up at this Totem Macabre, and they claw at it, sink their teeth in. Spark is getting even more Larry. Oh no, the Eternal Bond interrupted by Fincy. Too much charge, couldn't deal with the damage. A little squid of Monstro is going to just try and third-party Hardest here. Drijo finishes with 2 frags to their own name, and Virtus.pro bring it back.
Yeah, it's rough when Peps lose those Vanguards, lose those anchor heroes on that point. They have to just try and overcome it with the sustainability that free strategists can bring your team. But unfortunately, without those ultimates, they just don't have the heals per second to stand up to the amount of spam that is coming on through from Virtus.pro. And whoever steps up to try and bounce the point off of their fallen teammates gets immediately ripped off of the ground and held by the throat by that AMER Frost and Carbon Crush. It's truly a brutal cooldown.
Holds up a sacrifice to Ursa Major, and the bear god smiles upon said gift of flesh.
Team Peps, though, they did make it close. If they win the first fight, it becomes infinitely easier for them to hold the space with the amount of damage that they have over Virtus.pro's heads. Having both the Mantis and the Cloak and Dagger and the Ultron, you do have an awful lot of sustain, but the spam damage that you can do, that Virtus.pro have to pick themselves through, is definitely a lethal combination. But speaking about lethal combos, we're going to have Horn of Proteus, potentially for a damage boost, but what they're not going to have is Human Torch is, well, Fi just got extinguished.
Rare to achieve that kind of mugging on a character as nimble as the Human Torch. Great heads-up play there from Team Peps, and that's going to give them early control over this mission area. Shouldn't take too long for Fi to get back, and seems the calls come from Nevix, so they are going to try and play this one out, investing the regeneration domain as well. Into the back with the World Breaker Hulk, and oh boy, the world of France is in great danger right now. A Soul Resurgence coming through. It's plenty of healing for all of the meager DPS that the Hulk can put out.
Point cap.
To smash through the point, capped indeed by Virtus Pro. Great way to try and shut down DRP in the midst of all of this, making sure those metallic bulwarks can't be thrown elsewhere. Sentience grasped by Fincy, rolling in with the Carbon Crush. Larry's going to be the main victim of that one. And now with a Supernova declared by Leaf, it's a quick disengage. Really wants Stridro in the back. Hammer healing come on through. You can see the Cyber cast a Doppelganger next to their co-strategist in order to make sure that that healing can come through quickly. The Rage of Ultron is yet another attempt. Oh, Beetle! No! It was the Flame Prison in the end, the tick that took him down. You didn't think about how hot it was going to get under the collar.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. VP really wanted that point cap. They understand that they can't full regroup and re-push into space when Peps have that much damage potential above their heads. Hardest now is actually going to swap over towards the Winter Soldier, something that we expected to see coming on through, as Nevix has been a thorn in this team's side right now. If that Hulk tries to commit and take down the back line, Bionic Hook is going to be there to grab him back into the mix, as it does mean that Nevix bites off a little bit more than he can chew, but Horn of Proteus tries to put a stop to the Eternal Bond push from Peps. Larry dodges it, and finally Peps will grind to stand.
Yeah, Nevix being down for regen domain as well. That fight might have been cooked from the start. Wishful thinking from Sparker, honestly. Didn't even have the combination with the Fate of Both Worlds to get the damage boost. So Virtus Pro likely wishing they had that one back.
Well, Peps still behind on point percentage, and they had to swap that composition. So now they don't have the damage boost over Virtus Pro. Gone is the Ultron, gone is the Mantis. They've still got the Cloak and Dagger for Larry. They've also got Invisible Boundary coming on through from Aura Stealer. And there's nothing really from Virtus Pro that can try and challenge it. So it's a Supernova to start things off so they can just isolate DRP.
Oh, DRP too far up, didn't have any LOS from the strategist. The healing couldn't be delivered, and now these Flame Tornadoes so difficult to deal with. Fire just forced to dash away quickly, even inside the invisible boundary. Leaf never stood a chance. Weak to the fire type damage as a grass type player, that much is certain to see. An attempt to try and chase down Beetle. That pesky Captain America constantly the charge of Bruce Banner. And well, Nevix takes his duty very seriously when it comes to chasing down the Cap. In times such as these, Virtus Pro flip the point.
Oh, and they're looking for more. Hardest was silent, so he couldn't use the Kraken impact in that fight due to the Psionic Seduction coming on through. Virtus Pro still having so many of their ultimates. They can use the Horn of Proteus to put a stop to the movements that the Winter Soldier can try and find. If they think that they can use Kraken impact to find the resets off of Cyber's Doppelgangers, this is going to be a really rough fight, given the fact that VP have point anchor with the Hulk and the high ground. And again, Horn of Proteus, but again, Larry's able to dodge.
Once more, no damage boost. Just wishful thinking. However, that damage boost works a little bit better. I believe Larry was held aloft, and then the Trident of the Deep alongside the damage boost hits the headshot, grabs the frag, and now guess what? Hardest is in danger. Coming down with a Kraken impact. There's plenty of extra HP though. It's given over by the Winter. Oh, he's outside the invisible boundary. Somebody save this man. Nevix is angry, and it seems that the healing is at least being delivered when it's needed the most. Now it's Fi's turn, raining down from on high with the Firestorm. Leaf is trying to get involved and get brutal up against their counterpart. Grabbed on in by the Winter Soldier, Bionic Hook of all time, and it might well have saved Team Peps here on Hell's Heaven. Still, Fincy believes that there's a chance. Gets himself a double mind control both onto DRP and one of the backliners. Never trying to follow it up as we move on here. 100 charge on the beam means that Fincy is the dangerous customer to try and deal with, and even more so when the Carbon Crush gets involved. DRP ascends to the skies. A Meteor M that cannot be saved for a later map, but does not find any finishes here. Fi's come back on the Spider-Man, and now maybe a pull-off could be in danger. Moving over, still has that E. Someone falling off the map could be everything you know, but it could be coming on through. Nothing grabbed at the moment, though, and the Eternal Bond keeps all of Team Peps sustained through this. Larry's in major danger, still manages to stay within their own AoE. Fi's got yet another chance to try and play with. You don't want to grab the Invisible Woman. You're hoping for DRP. You're hoping for a Vanguard, and DRP gets found down into the abyss of molten lava. The iron content is not high enough to allow him to float once again, encased in obsidian, like the dreams of Team Peps, held aloft only by the hopes that Captain America brings to the fore. Aura Stealer just gets wombo combo. True 999 hit combo from the Hulk. It's like Marvel over here. We're fighting games now as Virtus Pro claim Hell's Heaven.
Virtus Pro, the target focus. They have so much respect for what Hardest can do in those overtimes. But honestly, it all started with that first fight. Even though they're down 5 right off of that strange TP, they understand they can't play into a retake situation. They're going to be permanently down a player, permanently missing ultimate charge in comparison to what Peps are able to do, because Peps have such a damage-loaded composition. And so they invest. They've got the one-sided Loki. Out jumps Nevix onto the point in Hulk form so that he can land in the regen domain, and then he's one jump away from the backline, and then it's so smart. Sparker opens up with Horn of Proteus onto the backline, which means that Larry can't use Dark Teleportation. It might provide an iframe for the Cloak and Dagger, but it's a movement ability, so the Earthbound means that the Cloak and Dagger can't save themselves. That forces Aura Stealer's hand into burning the Soul Resurgence, but all of a sudden you've got a World Breaker Hulk in front of you, juggling you off of the point. Everyone from Peps had to pull back from anchoring, even though they were one person down. Could have potentially taken the fight with a brawl for control of that point cap first. They all have to pull back and play peel for that backline, and that allows VP the first point of control. And from there, it's just a matter of controlling the space. Every time Peps try and make another approach, it's Eternal Bond, but there's no follow through. There's no Punisher to play off of the back of it. And Sparker, even though he doesn't find a hit onto Larry with the Horn of Proteuses, he still manages to make Peps pause before they hit W to capitalize off of the space that their Cloak and Dagger provided, and that's immediately followed up by the Carbon Crush coming on through, grabbing Larry and just holding him aloft so that the follow-up damage is there immediately from the Namor. This was so smartly thought out from the side of Virtus Pro. From the beginning, when they saw the advanced pick and bans, they knew Cloak and Dagger could be a problem, but Cloak and Dagger's only a problem if you've got the follow-through, and there was never any follow-through.
Plans within plans for Virtus Pro. It seems that after the loss yesterday to Burbo Patapin, the homework has been done. And indeed, it's been a very high learning experience here at Marvel Rivals Ignite for Virtus Pro, previously undefeated and now defeated twice. But some would say when a team lose, that gives them all the more opportunity to come back stronger. You don't learn as much when you're constantly winning, but when you start to see your weaknesses, you can start addressing them a lot more easily. We'll have to see if Team Peps have got any more secrets up their sleeve to get one over on Virtus Pro after this break. Urson! Vincey screams, holding Larry to the moon. Give me Emma Frost, and his life is yours. Dominant performance on Hell's Heaven from Virtus Pro as Team Peps are left reeling by an Emma Frost that was just carbon crushing him.
Yeah, and I mean, Hardest maybe left a little bit motion sick as well from all of the juggles that he was put under by Nevix. Every single time a Kraken impact was about to come through, was part way through, or they were like, okay, maybe he's like 88% to the ultimate, the target focus immediately swung over to getting that Winter Soldier out of the mix. You really can tell that Virtus Pro are thinking 2 steps ahead of the competition currently, and they're able to do so because they got the Loki. I feel like Peps are definitely not going to allow the Loki cleanly through. As we were talking in between the break, you know, there were 2 fights there. VP get first cap on Super Soldier Factory, coming on out with a regen domain save so that they can anchor point, and then that overtime fight as well, where it's like, surely Peps are just going to be able to clean this one up, and then no, you have to worry about Finzi coming on through that psionic seduction. It's because Saipei came on out with that regen domain for the Emma to play right in the middle of. Saipei is such a strong strategist, but it definitely feels like Loki's that comfort pick.
Spider Island's the pick here off Team Peps. For those of you who haven't been keeping track of the ancient lore, Spider Islands was the first map that Virtus Pro ever lost in an official tournament, and they lost it to Team Peps.
Yeah, and some of the original members from Peps are still on that roster, Hardest being one of them. He was such a hero in these overtime moments as Virtus Pro. Oh, they're going to get one-sided Loki again.
Maybe they will. Seems like they could be prioritized. I reckon they go for the AMER save here. Maybe there's a world where Team Peps pivot their ban strategy, because obviously they banned Psylocke Cap last time, which is very good on Hell's Heaven. Don't know if that's going to be as much of a concern on Spider Islands, where it's a lot more linear. Oh, they still want Spark and Psylocke on, which honestly I can respect.
Yeah, I mean, you have to worry about your backline being hit by a Psylocke and a Captain America. You also have to worry about your flyers being hit by a Psylocke. And if they want to run Leaf off of something like that Storm with Hardest on the Punisher, which unfortunately the Punisher has been removed, but there's that Loki ban that we were anticipating the pivot to become. Captain America is still going to be up, though, the side of both VP and Peps, as Fi is going to be looking to secure his Human Torch.
This might try and force out an Invisible Woman ban from the side of Team Peps as the last. They're going to go for the Adam again, potentially? I mean... I'm a known Adam hater. I think ResComp is overhyped in EMEA.
So it's not just ResComp that you have to worry about, it's the overtime fights, right? Where a lot of teams, Berber actually used this against VP yesterday on Midtown, where there's an overtime fight approaching on B, and they just swap in an Adam Warlock so that they can have the self-res, the soul bond if they're behind in terms of ultimate charge, and you've immediately got a defensive option against an aggressive ultimate coming on through from something like, say, a duelist, as it looks like VP will actually utilize that last ban system slot to take away the cloak and dagger from the side of Peps, but they have been able to secure the Lunar Snow themselves. And since VP don't get the Loki, there is no opportunity to copy that fate of both worlds.
Yeah, no access to the Terror Cape, no access to the Eternal Bond as well on the other side. Going to be entirely unmirrored, as we are going to see Nevix is going to pick up the cap here. It wasn't banned out this time, and Nevix is a fantastic cap player. But I feel like Nevix is getting a lot of value out of the Hulk, has crazy mechanics on the ultimate.
Yeah, but the Hulk is very, very strong. However, can be somewhat of a pin cushion, especially if Invis is still in play, where you jump in and then she waits for you to try to jump out. And boom, force physics. All of a sudden, you're right back at that Invis woman's feet, and the entire rest of her team is just there waiting to take you down, and immediately gain so much ultimate charge. The Captain America is so much more of an annoyance because he still has that high level of mobility, but that opportunity to just bounce projectiles back, including whole ultimates, in terms of things like the Iron Man Maximum Pulse or the Meteor M, which we have seen actually come on through in Ignite, is just invaluable.
Unbelievable stuff. I'd love to see it happen once again here at Marvel Rivals Ignite EMEA. 5 course just going to be sitting up in the air. It's not going to be having that additional sustainability from the team up, though. Virtus Pro have opted into the Balloona and Cloak and Dagger.
Virtus Pro not going for the triple Vanguard strategy, so not taking 3 fights minimum on this one. We're not even seeing the Strange come through at the moment, but what we are seeing is a counter flyer composition coming on out. They'll be able to deal with the Star-Lord and the Torch off of just spam pressure coming on through from their Namor, at the same time as being able to dispatch Beetle if he tries to overcommit into that backline.
Yeah, DRP could be in major danger here as well off the back of a Carbon Crush and Terror Cape in tandem. Still, we already saw the Terror Cape come out, just constantly displacing these crosshairs. Oh, in danger right here. Leaf has to disengage away, using that hot drop down to her back. 100 charge for Fincy. This is where you really start to fear for Team Peps. They need to start winning these fights early before Fincy can get charged up.
Spark has already got Horn of Proteus off of all of the damage that he's been able to do. The freeze as well from the Absolute Zero onto Beetle. There's Horn of Proteus. And Team Peps are forced to take a big step backwards. It's got to be a commitment of fate of both worlds that allows Hardest to finally take Sparker down. And Dritter's Eternal Bond, unfortunately, was not in time to save the Namor.
Outside of the Eternal Bond, yeah. So the Namor could not be saved. It's going to be down to Thigh to be that solo DPS for now. Vidula's trying to get it done. Beetle forced to bring up their shield. It's not going to last for too long. That's multiple players going to be mind controlled. Hardest a little bit shy of the AoE. DRP gets too little off the back of the Meteor M. It's a fall-in investment for the side of Team Peps. But once everything is cleared out here, it could be Leaf who makes it work with Supernova from the top. Fire is going to be able to answer it as well. Drieger's already been taken down. It's Beetle in the back. managing to smash them away with his slimy carapace. Leaf going up to try and get that mid-air fight against their counterpart. Thigh is keen to get even more here. Larry seen in the back. The Worldbreaker Hulk is over, returning to the cart for a solemn duty of stopping the objective from moving into this nasty little zone. Leaf has Fi kind of exactly where he wants him, but in this unsupported battle over here, the 2v1, it's hardest who comes in to strike the final blow. Virtus Pro running low on options. Maybe Fi comes back here on the Doctor Strange, could swap over for a quick portal, but damage could have already been done though. Cyber actually blasted off the back by Aura Stealer. What a great read on the force physics.
Strange is going to be coming back potentially, but no, they think better off of it. And unfortunately, they're not going to be able to have Trudero build an Eternal Bond to stop the momentum from Peps, because Trudero is already down, which means that Peps are already all the way at the end point of V to connect onto even more staggers. Nevix throws himself off of the map so that they can regroup a little bit faster and try and minimize the amount of distance that Peps are able to pick up on this payload, as a full reset needs to come through immediately if the defense want any opportunity to hold.
Yeah, coming down to just having two phases to these fights, and Virtus Pro reacting a little bit too resource heavily to the first one, seeing that Eternal Bond and the Fate of Both Worlds come out before the Flame Tornadoes.
They've got so many options too. Aura Sealer's going to be able to use Invis Boundary against Finzy's Sonic Seduction because DRP has the Meteor Amp to absorb all of the Galactic Legend that Sparker is going to be able to output. But no, they exhausted. They tried to take down Trudero in the ultimate. They do manage to find the pick, but now that Galactic Legend and the Supernova from Virtus Pro is looking a little bit more dangerous.
Follow-up isn't quite there though for the Sonic Seduction because of the Fate of Both Worlds still being active. Freedom Charge, everyone's got plenty of health to try and work, but maybe not ideal for Sparker. Can't get down into the AoE, 22 pieces of HP remaining, and it's a blast barrage ascending to the skies, which makes Sparker fall down like an Icarus from a flight too high. And now it's going to be the backline under siege. This needs to be stopped somehow. The Terror Cape could be the insurance policy that Virtus Pro have been waiting for. Getting rid of Beetle, yes, but traded out for Fincy means that Nevix desperately needs all the pocketing the strategist can provide.
Oh, he's got to be careful as well that he doesn't go out of LOS around that corner. As we can see, Saipe and Dritter are just trying to build up their ultimates as quick as they possibly can. Absolute Zero and Ice Hearts all coming on through from Saipe just to get a little bit more sustainability. Fi playing Peel, they've been able to carbon crush out Beetle, but the Captain America still makes it back to his team.
Well, that Metallic Bulwark though, not going to be available for DRP for another 10 seconds or so. Yet another incursion into the backline coming through from the side of Beetle, and that gives enough of a distraction for Leaf to fall through the cracks and get rid of Fi. Now Harder simply has to wait out the Eternal Bond, or maybe find someone who's a little bit out of position when it comes to that healing AoE. The Galactic Legend in the back pocket, Larry's already down, and so Team Peps might have to call this one back to the drawing board.
Yeah, living an Eternal Bond is easier said than done, because you lose a lot of space to safely disengage because you know that the Terror Cape is going to be following up from that fourth and final dash. But like you said, having that Galactic Legend on the line for Peps, as well as pretty soon a Supernova 2, is going to give Virtus Pro serious pause for thought about how they utilize this Fate of Both Worlds. Sparker starts things off aggressively. That forces DRP with the Meteor Amp, and Hardest is actually going to try and win the Star-Lord duel. The DRP rock, paper, scissors, rock, trump Star-Lord.
I just give LeBron the ball. Sometimes DRP is just that guy. Leaf once again wins out in the Human Torch duel against Fi, even while the Fate of Both Worlds is active. And now there's not too much to deal with a temperature that keeps on rising. These strategists are feeling hot under the collar. They're stuck inside the Team Peps microwave. And while it is Leaf dodging away from a Sonic Seduction, there's not going to be dragged on in for now. Might be in a vulnerable position, but could always descend down into their own Fate of Both Worlds. Sustainability aplomb here for the side of Team Peps as Larry drags them forward. A Terror Cape makes Hardest go elsewhere for a moment, utilizing the map awareness to get into cover, even while blinded. It's Dreedro's turn. The Eternal Bond claims all of this space, and Sparks return on the Punisher. We finally see Virtus Pro bring out one of the most high meta picks at the moment to help out with that mid-air battle that's constantly been going the way of Leaf, who's had to swap over now onto the Doctor Strange for a last second contest.
Yeah, it's gonna be last fight, 4 seconds remaining. It's gonna be all up to the Strange, but he gets body blocked! And he doesn't get through. Yep.
Unreal spinning kick.
Diamond form into spinning kick comes out from Virtus Pro, and Peps are denied the touch. And that is where the payload finishes. I wondered when we would see that Punisher come out, as Virtus Pro, they try to have the matchup, you know, Torch versus Torch, But the Torch versus Torch is unfairly sided to Team Peps, given the fact that Aura Stealer's on the invis, so Leaf always has the upper hand in terms of that armor that he can utilize off of the team up. And even the Star-Lord versus Star-Lord was a 2 versus 1, as DRP is always there. Every single time Hardest started going a little bit low, out comes the Bulwark so that Hardest can win the duel against Sparker. Finally, they had enough of it. They were just like, let's just put him on the Punisher and pull out the shotgun.
Yeah, the Guardian shield doesn't last long against that 40 bullet clip that Punisher has now, and it felt like the Guardian shield, as well as that team-up ability, was a constant thorn in the side of these 1v1 duels. And honestly, there was great reactivity from Team Peps when it came to finding 2v1s as well. That's actually how they opened up the first point of getting a 2v1 onto Fi, when it felt like it was just going to be a Leaf versus Fi honorable torch duel.
Yeah, I mean, you could really see they wanted to try and force that torch-free torch as much as they possibly could, because if Fi is looking at the other torch, he's not looking at your vanguards, which means that your strategists aren't having to perma-bot heal your vanguards. They can still help out your duelists in other spaces of the map too. As Peps now will be on the defense. Still though, no triple vanguard strategy. Instead, it's the triple strategist strategy coming out from that side as they try and stall out these fights for as long as they possibly can.
Hardest reigns above it all. It seems like Team Peps, oh, they've already lost DRP. So is DRP going to be the one to swap now? Over on to the Stranger. They're going to go for their 3-fight minimum. Keep your eyes on that top bar here. Looks like DRP actually has got the call, but we're not going to TP on back. They're just going to call this one, come back for a fight later.
Oh, no, there's DRP. DRP is going to go on to the Strange now. They just had to wait out because they've still got players up in this fight, so they're all just going to slowly trickle onto that cart and throw themselves on it to stall out the movement as much as they possibly can. And then the Strange portal's going to come through.
Yep, fight number 2. Ready to go. This is all about draining that time back, and you certainly need to when you've only got 1 point and most of the progress here on second. Hardest rolls on out, instantly uses the Blaster Barrage to give damage to all and sundry as Fire reigns above it all, looking for a target coming in close to their counterpart, but that Invis team up does make it a little bit more difficult. Sparker with the Rage of Ultron. It's going to be a lot of damage, yes, but inside the Lunar healing at this point is mostly cosmetic, and so Hardest able to freely come forth with that damage. But now the Eternal Bond is Stridro grabbing all of the space. Has to be careful to stay within this AoE. The Terrorcade makes things a little bit more difficult for the wayward Star-Lord. Fire lays down Fire Tornado after Fire Tornado and caught out in a corner. It's not the ideal for the Invisible Woman. Still in this 1 versus 1. It's going to be Fight able to grab the HP pack. Unbelievable plays there. And Hardest now up above, raining down damage from the Galactic Legend. The Freedom Charge gives all that's needed. Hardest just about managed to get into cover, staying away from Fincy. Does not wish to swipe right on the Emma Frost, but Larry's got no such sensibilities. She's so cute though, how could I resist?
The stall though, they're still stalling. They're losing the fight, but they are stalling, and that's exactly what Peps needed to do. As Virtus Pro have 1 more fight before they can cap out A, and it's going to be off of the back of Rage of Ultron and spam damage. Off of all of these chokehold approaches that Peps are going to be forced to try and approach through. DRP also has that Eye of Agamotto, and Virtus Pro, lacking that Invis Woman, don't have the means of mitigating it. It's going to have to be a block from Finzi coming on through, or potentially just taking the Strange down.
Yeah, oh, Saipe with the Ice Arts grabs 2 final blows, all for themselves. DRP was really hoping to use the Eye of Agamotto in this fight as well, but was late to arrive because this means that it's still going to be difficult to swap over onto the mag. Have to give up 50% ult charge. Seems like that's going to be a necessary sacrifice. Yeah, DRP gives it up.
Yeah, I mean, at least you are going to be close to that Meteor M so that you can try and match pace with Fi when he hits the Supernova. But Virtus Pro definitely have momentum on their side currently. Rage of Ultron to be able to push ahead and buy a little bit of time potentially too for Dridro to build that Eternal Bond to match up to the damage that Leaf can output on the Supernova.
Nevic's knocked back 4 now. Doesn't want to push their luck. Instead, going to be marking Beetle in the back again. The Ice Arts once more from Saipe. They're so difficult for Beetle to deal with. The Rage of Ultron. It's putting damage down range. At the moment, it's more like suppressing fire onto the strategist. It actually forces out the answer here in the form of the Fate of Both Worlds. Virtus Pro probably just going to disengage from this one, but no, they actually strike on back with the Eternal Bond. They figured out the timings. Juju just has to be careful not to be caught in their own right. A 4-person Terrorcade. Oh, the damage is so brutal onto the backline. The invisible boundary has to be used just to make sure the strategists don't fall down to the attentions Nevix is giving. Hardest comes in once more with the Galactic Legend. Cannot move away from the Sonic Hypnotic Seduction, the brain gets fried, the worms are there, and DRP is fertilizing the soil with the bodies of their victims. Unbelievable grab in the air onto Sparker, but now they find themselves alone with no friends. The Emma Frost takes out their co-mutant with the help of the Human Torch. For Leaf in here, it's a desperate attempt to survive, but you need more than desperation to get one over onto VP. There's still a fate of both worlds to play with.
The staggers are coming on for Beetle's Freedom Charge baits out Saipe to have to match sustainability with the fate of both worlds, so Virtus.pro are at least down that ultimate in the fight that comes next. But Team Peps are so many players down because of those staggers that we're now down to the last final fight. DRP's got to come back on the Strange to teleport people back, but VP have the max amount of players on the payload, and it's going to have to be a desperation dive from Leaf.
Arubs at 95%. Everything comes down to Larry. And look at the chase out coming here from Beetle. Fincy picked off by the Human Torch. The disengage was pretty strong. Virtus.pro, they had to give up Fincy in order to make sure that their backline survived. A retake from Team Peps. Now 1 minute 30 remains.
Yeah, but Peps had to sacrifice fate of both worlds to make sure that they got through that portal safely without losing a play, since they had no information on Virtus.pro's positions. And now they don't have it for the Rage of Ultron. As Virtus.pro try and answer back, it's up to Hardest with the Galactic Legend to keep the Ultron in check, but the Aether's Aegis comes on through from Finzy, and Spark is able to survive the attention.
Oh, the Aegis. It was just perfect there from Fincy. Now Druja can move on forward, unbothered, unconcerned about a Meteor M, because DRP's had to go over once again. Oh, Fi, what a landing. A hot drop onto Larry, and now raining down from above it all once again. The storm front has been opened. Open the gates of hell and stare into Avernus, because it's fire and flames that carry Virtus.pro to a victory.
Virtus.pro just so good at suppressing. Just every single time when you called the suppressing fire coming on out, that Rage of Ultron was used to entirely suppress the supernova from Team Peps, and Team Peps were trying to use that supernova to stabilize, to give themselves a little bit of breathing room, to set their players up in positions where it's harder for Virtus.pro to pick them off as the fight begins, and potentially they can use spam pressure too to force VP's hands to have to overcommit some of those vital cooldowns before the fight properly kicks off. And unfortunately, they never got the opportunity to do so. Virtus.pro did such a good job of keeping Peps constantly uncomfortable. Every single time they had to come back into a fight, they were committing resources right into the rip, and Virtus.pro properly understood, if we just disengage and make sure that all of our players survive the exit, we can immediately turn back in again.
I mean, it's time for the Saipe Glaze Power Hour once again. I think one of the main differences in that particular map was in the Luna versus Luna, Larry walked away with 0 final hits. For Saipe, 9, almost as much as anyone else on the team, really contributing to finding those frags and utilizing how much damage Luna can do when you aren't having the full uptime healing your Vanguards. Of course, for Larry, there was always that demand to just pocket DRP, because you need him to be full HP all the time, or they're just going to get Fincy'd on.
Yeah, and you have to worry about Finzy permanently. Every single time that shield is going to be dropping, your Vanguards are going to be taking so much damage. Even Saipe here coming on through, utilizing the fact that everyone from Peps, because they'd exhausted the Strange Portal on the second fight of first, rather than utilizing it for the recontest of the last, they're all coming through from chokes. So Saipe perfectly times utilizing that Ice Odds, which has a Pierce ability. So all of the players from Peps who were stacked up, they're all being hit by that Luna damage coming on through, and it was just that awareness of when to utilize it aggressively or when to potentially utilize it defensively really allowed Saipe to get the better of the Luna Mirror.
Yeah, it's still such a wide hitbox, that Ice Arts as well, but it's very good for for hitting a very evasive Captain America. When he's in the middle of his run and his fearless leap, you know, he could be a little bit of a nuisance to try and hit. Fincy also essentially 100% charge all the time, just an absolute fire hose of damage with that Sonic Beam. It was so difficult to deal with. I'd love to see a pivot to trying to shut down Fincy's Emma Frost from Peps, because it seems like it's been a real difference maker so far. We'll have to see if Peps take the advice after this break. Team Peps facing down the barrel here at Marvel Rivals Ignite EMEA Playoffs Day 3. We're in yet another elimination match, and as surprised as we are to see Virtus Pro in the lower bracket, their performance thus far is far from surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be surprising, I think, for both of us if we see a pivot towards, instead of insta-banning out the Magneto so that DRP can get one-sided mag, potentially taking the AMER out of things immediately, I think would definitely benefit Peps for all of the strategies that they're trying to play. Like, they're trying to put Beetle onto the Captain America, and for sometimes it is working, and then he immediately just gets grabbed out by Finzi and sent packing because Carbon Crush then leads into the CC roulette rotation of, oh, well, now you're getting hit by Absolute Zero coming on through from Dredro, and then if there's a Cloak and Dagger in play, that's going to lead into a Terra Cape too. So it's not a fun time for any component of a dive composition to go up against this AMER.
Yeah, Chain CC, never a truly fun endeavor. And you just get so much value out of the AMER, in particular on BP, just because Nevix is so flexible. Which means that Finzi can really lock in on just being really good about AMER. And Nevix will always be able to fill whatever. Yep, there it is.
There we go.
Peps. Let's get that off the board, shall we? It's been too much, too fast.
They have been able to secure the Magneto, but it's likely that Virtus Pro will also be able to secure the Magneto. They might be able to secure one-sided Loki. However, as they have been banning that one out second every single time against Pep, so that Saipe can have only access to the God of Mischief and the regen domains that come on through off of it.
Yep, and that's going to be yet another priority. Do not want Saipe playing the Loki. Of course, Saipe we've seen pop off previously on the Lunar Snow in the maps previous as well. A quick Punisher ban could be everything. Oh, this is my force a Lunar save here from Virtus Pro, as they are threatening the to run the gauntlet
of the strategist removal. Yeah, this is very targeted. Virtus Pro targeting hardest with the Punisher removal, and there indeed is the Lunar Snow save that we're anticipating being locked in, so that Dredro is going to be able to keep a hold of that one, and they can play the Luna with that Invis woman coming on through. And I mean, Fi's going to be more than happy to play with an Invis if he wants to play the Torch as Team Peps. You constantly do have to worry if you go for a strategist heavy ban line that they are going to rewrite to a triple strategy lineup. So that was thinking about taking out the Rescom from Sparker, but they decide actually to ban the Psylocke instead, given the fact that the Luna was able to make it through. Yeah,
realizing that with Luna in there, probably going to be a pivot to a double strategist, not going to be as much value potentially off the Adam. Now for the Protect. And keeping Beetle's ability to run around on the Captain America now that you're not getting hit by that Carbon Crush all the time, I think is a very valuable thing to add.
Yeah, but do Virtus Pro now go for the Cloak and Dagger so that Team Peps have a rough time of it in terms of the strategist lineup? Yes, you absolutely do. So no Eternal Bonds. They've been promo-broken for both of these teams. But we are going to be seeing Fi on that Torch potentially getting full pocketed if they decide to go and put Sparker onto that Ultron. But then again, since they were able to secure the Luna and the Punisher, they might have the lead in terms of just damage that they can output consistently, since Peps, unfortunately, don't have access to Frank Castle. They've been barred from it entirely.
Yeah, and on Symbiotic Surface, Frank Castle is a monster. He gets such good use of the high ground, so culling turret so easy to set up. He really tanks the approaches of a team that doesn't have that much shielding, and usually you're going to be looking at a single Vanguard able to shield that off as a Captain America, who's constantly trying to set up on an off angle while the remainder of the team goes for their commute.
True, but Magneto in play does make it a little bit harder for the Punisher to find value if the reaction check of Meteor M to Final Judgment timeline is correct, but that does often come down to a coin flip, and there is an awful lot in play as well nowadays that shuts down Meteor M to the point where it's just, you know, a little bonus factor if you are able to find a pick with the Comet hit.
All right, DRP and Aura Stealer. What's the pivot here? Is of course going to be... Oh, fine, just trying to set up already to make sure there's that constant damage. A free ult charge, really, onto the double Vanguard, as it's going to be a cast of the portal. Nevix ready to answer this one. Dredro and Finzi already falling low, but this should be fairly easily answered with a triple strategist setup.
We have seen, however, teams like to just box themselves onto that high ground so that they can giga fast build up a strategist ultimate, but with Cloak and Dagger out of the way, it's not going to be an Eternal Bond, which allows you passage onto point. It will be the Invis boundary that Aura Stealer is trying to hypercharge up currently. The Sparker on that Ultron is the one with the Idle Aura, playing entirely off of the sidelines, out of sight entirely, as Fi is the one taking all of the attention and receiving all of the resources, so that he remains not so much standing, but flying.
Yeah, Fire's really taking so much damage here, but Druidra is well on top of it from the Lunar Snow POV. Great mechanics coming through from the Lunar Snows across both of our teams. Already an invisible boundary is brought on up. Oh, Aura Stealer and Larry instantly picked off. The Vanguards managed to find the opening right there. And for just a singular ultimate, Virtus.pro stands strong.
Oh, and that was the teleport approach as well, coming on through from Peps, which means that you're going to be laid down a gauntlet of quite literal fire. The Ultron, the Human Torch, they're all going to be spamming so much damage in your direction, and you don't even get to utilize it to charge up a strategist ult because you've got 100 on both of them.
So the gameplay here, I think, is to try and force out a strategist out early, utilizing the Wrath of Ultron, and there it is. Larry forced to use the Fate of Both Worlds a little bit early. Virtus.pro disengaged. They're going to burn some of the time here. Likely go back into their cubby. Losing Saipe wasn't part of the plan, though. So Fire is forced to use even more to try and keep this one at bay. Invisible boundary brought on up, but the healing isn't quite as comprehensive as the Fate of Both Worlds. And Druidra popped their own here. Needs to swap over back to the healing Aura. Hardest has perfect timing to try and counter out this ultimate. The second that it goes away, Hardest is laying down the fire, but the Freedom Charge is still such an annoying pest who needs to be dealt with in the back. And speaking of annoying pests, it's Beetle who's managed to find his way into bedbug status. Fi just floats away, doesn't want to get hit by the Meteor M. A disengagement here. Druidra and Saipo are trying to keep each other safe, but Team Peps, they just utilized their entire ultimate bank.
Larry's down though. Virtus.pro still have their Luna up, but it is going to be Team Peps finally able to take A, given the fact that they pushed Virtus.pro all the way back into parts of B with the ultimates that came on through. And Virtus.pro not going for the teleport route contest, going to be prioritizing holding this high ground so that they have that position to keep the flyers in check from Peps so that it doesn't bleed more momentum and free payload push equalized off of the back of it. As Fi tries to utilize all of the damage, Sparker also utilizing the terrain to just hide his hitbox, pop up, provide a little bit of damage, and then fall back before it can be returned his way.
An evasive little mosquito flitting around in the air. Saipo can't afford to be picked early again. And there it is. The Rage of Ultron already trying to force out the strategist ultimates. Oh, Larry was not inside. Saipe slowed down the commute into the invisible boundary, utilizing that psionic vortex. And now Team Peps, they have decisions to make. Down 2, down 3. Surely they got to call it here.
Virtus.pro still have strategist ultimates too. They're up one entire defensive against Team Peps when it comes to the pro fight. And that's before we even talk about the damage that Team Peps are going to be forced under to just get back to the payload. Virtus.pro with Nevix on this Captain America can make all of these approaches so uncomfortable. Hardest is going to have that Galactic Legend. Fins, if he uses the Meteor M, gives a free pass to leave Supernova, so he holds off on it. And instead it's Druidra and Fi utilizing their ults at the same time. Defensive to outlive the Galactic Legend and still have the damage boost after Supernova.
Damage boost onto the Meteor M as well. Still fails to find Payder at the moment. Fire rolling on forward. Fincy has been sacrificed. They need to convert onto a strategist right now, but Nevix is distracted elsewhere. Has to instead deal with DRP on the other side. The Rage of Ultron. The damage is good, yes, but can they try and finish off Beetle? A great pull in. Guardian Shield and Freedom Charge to use to make sure the Captain America stays on up, and Drijo can't be saved. Saipe too late on the trigger, unable to respond to the stimuli that are arrayed before them. And Nevix is disengaged. Complicated shot slightly here by Leaf. Can't afford to be staggered, but maybe hunted down.
I mean, he's able to make it out. There are so many corners, but he's still being tracked by this torch. However, they have to back away given the peel and presence of Fi. Now, Virtus.pro have been able to regroup, and it's up to Beetle to buy Team Peps the space to stabilize on this high ground once more.
Fire's taking so much damage here. Hard is trying to cut off the escape as well. There was a Sonic Vortex to try and keep both of these airborne DPS down on the ground and stymie their approach to follow up onto Fi. It worked out there. The peeling's good from Cypher, but now it's down to Nevix with the animation counts to really deliver some pain onto this backline. An Ultron drone applied to the Lunar Snow. Triage to try and stop that backline from once again being picked off too early. But Nevix has to focus elsewhere, and that means Shreedro falls through the cracks, and Hardest is seeing the opening, the crack in the armor. He digs his nails in with the Galactic Legend, and he tries to tear the defense of Virtus.pro asunder. Reinforced now by the invisible boundary, but Larry is more than ready to answer this. 50% extra damage onto a Meteor M, but still DRP grabs nothing off the back of it. Fincy's on duty to keep this one contested as Nevix goes elsewhere, making sure this backline's reinforced. Both the Human Torches fall on down. Sparky getting up close and personal. Larry chased down. Oh, Fincy, give him the ball, baby. Let Kobe play on. And Leaf just has to call it right there. And they've
that's the strange TP. They wasted the cooldown. There's 30 seconds left. Team Peps don't have strange TP back. That's desperation now, and our DRP's got to go into the Venom just to be able to utilize the swing and touch the payload, and they're going to be running right directly into the Supernova. Beetle with the Freedom Charge, that health bar is going to evaporate under the focus coming on through, and the Venom might be able to make it through. But the rest of the team, the same cannot be said. Finns has already picked Aura Stealer off. Team Peps are having to move without a strategist.
Say goodbye to Exodia or say goodbye to Aura Stealer. It's all the same as far as Team Peps are concerned. They're going to be down a strategist to try and do this. No quick returns on the docket. Larry's down as well. All damage taken now by Team Peps is permanent. And going up against Virtus.pro strategist line, you just can't make it work. Leaf had a celebratory announcement, but they were diving into the backline, but Fire just shoots him in the back of the head and gets the frag that's necessary. Virtus.pro hold on second.
Oh, that TP attempt is going to be haunting Peps.
Oh, yeah.
That's devastating because they thought about going for the Venom and then they realized that they just couldn't. There are so many things that can just stop a Venom, and also if you move off of that Magneto when the fight begins, if it does go to the brawl factor, you're not going to have Bulwark, you're not going to have Meteor M, you're going to have one less shield to be able to try and cover for the Meteor M that comes through from the other side. And unfortunately for Peps, everyone from VP just understands the situation. Someone's got to keep running, regardless of what goes on around them from the side of Peps. So what better time to just jump on the unprotected back line, because Beetle's got to use the entirety of Freedom Charge just to guarantee that the map continues.
There's a catch-22 for Team Peps.
30 seconds before you attack.
Fincy
Get ready.
having a brief tourist spot here on the Magneto, as it's usually banned away from them. Managing to get huge value out of a Meteor M. Picking Larry in that penultimate fight could have been everything when it came to securing that overall fight. Unfortunately for DRP, who usually we know is one of the best Magnetos in EMEA, the Meteor M is just yet to deliver the value.
Yeah, for Team Peps, there's so many win conditions, but the number one has to be don't lose A immediately to a teleport play from a Doctor Strange. I mean, Virtus.pro, they're not even going to attempt the Strange TP just yet. They're going to save it for if the fight starts going a little bit away from Peps' side and they can have one of their players come back in immediately on the brawl stage off the point itself. It's just going to be spam pressure for spam pressure coming on through for both of these sides, but that does mean that Team Peps get a lot of map space for free.
Both teams going to be utilizing this Ultron. It's going to make life for the Human Torches dangerous, but remember that it is going to be both torches with that C ability as well, provided by the... Oh, where did the backline go? Where did the backline going? Team Peps being disintegrated just for target focus was so good. I guess everyone looked away from that aerial duel for a second, and they all-in Alpha struck onto both Aura Stealer and Larry.
Yeah, Nevix might not be on the Doctor Strange, but he was an absolute magician with the way that he was able to jump into the backline and make them all absolutely disappear off of a really nicely coordinated ice arts coming on through from Dridro at the same time. Just get so much damage onto one target and move on to the next. And that's A, immediately picked up. Team Peps were at least able to match some of the damages coming on through, so Hardest can still light this fight if he decides to hit emergency and come on through with the Rage of Ultron, but Sparker wants the opposite right now. VP want to continue the push, and it becomes a mirror.
All right, Rage of Ultron. Neither one getting too much in the way of frag feed value. Still 5 falls through the cracks as the rest of the team were distracted by Beetle in the back. He's still back there, but disengagement actually getting body blocked here by Nevix, trying to complicate the pathing. We'll have to get out in their own right as they fall low and run out of shielding.
Trader is going to have fate of both worlds so that VP can keep themselves mobile while they have that heal sustainability. Invis Boundary a little bit more static and tied to one position as Fire comes on for the Supernova. Trying to fight Fire with Fire right now as they almost find Leaf.
Oh, Leaf fell low, still managed to descend into that Fate of Both Worlds. Aura still is taking so much damage yet again. Has to stay out of these flame tornadoes. And now it's DRP's turn for a little bit of redemption. A big Meteor M, no, it's straight into Metallic Curtain of Fincy saying, absolutely not, mate. I am the one who knocks with the spicy meter ball. But it's DRP again finding that Iron Volley frag onto the Human Torch. The aerial accuracy of DRP cannot be understated. But Leaf disengage, it's covered by the usage of the Metallic Bulwark. A mid-air attempt here from Sparker. It's a little bit risky to try and play with. Fi comes back. Oh, the thick Fi's ending lives as Leaf falls down. Cannot stay in the kitchen for too long. Inside of this invisible boundary, you can see Nevix using that Freedom Charge to constantly try and push Aura Stealer out of the AoE, but unsuccessful in this case. Team Peps, they are having to slowly disengage before they're reinforced by their Freedom Charge.
They've got Freedom Charge, and it's the only ultimate current in the field for all of the teams, so they have to make it count. Beetle goes aggressive, but gets frozen by the Absolute Zero from Dorito, and all of a sudden, Peps' push is found absolutely not alongside it.
All right, Fi looking for a target. Not worried too much about Leaf until they see an opening. Forces for disengage, and now Leaf could actually be a tricky customer to try and deal with. Finzy holds the line. Beetle under strain. Needs all of a strategist's attention right bloody now. And it's going to be Larry who answers the call. When the Avengers were called, it's a Fate of Both Worlds that answers. But Leaf is still having to dodge inside of that aura. Virtus Pro in control of the car. It's going to start rolling on forward. The Rage of Ultron perfectly timed. It might overwhelm the Meteor M. It seems that Fincy may have actually caught it right there. The damage not proving to be fatal. Larry and Aura Stealer again, falling in tandem in the back. A spread out of damage. The cross ceiling is not enough. And Hardest, the last remaining strategist, falls at the end of their counterpart. Fi's ready to just cook it up.
VP are so vigilant of the fight that comes afterwards. They know that Team Peps have a strange TP. They might just try and navigate into this next fight on their feet alone so they can have it if it comes down to an all-eyebrow when they start losing players. But Virtus Pro are going to have high ground control. They're going to have so many avenues as well to spam damage from this Torch and Ultron into Team Peps' push.
Nevix making sure that moving through this choke is far from easy, just on a physical level. Getting these body blocks is down to Beetle. Fears will sleep off the top. Leaf under strain, under pressure. Could have actually been a bait right there. Might well be able to turn it around with the help of the Ultron, going for a 2 versus 1. But elsewhere, it's going to have to be Aura Stealer drawing up the healing from the invisible boundary. 5 backs off for about a moment. Virtus Pro still have 2 minutes left. Nevix has popped the Freedom Charge and a Vortex here. Takes Sparker down to Terra Firma. A Meteor M. Can he get it done again into the corner? Great dodge from Leaf. Just descends to the ground. A quick hot drop to avoid an incoming spicy ball. And now Leaf is able to just stare from above inside this invisible boundary, looking in towards Larry. Larry's 17% away from a Fate of Both Worlds, but its Leaf has fallen down to Drijo once again. It's the VP usage of the Lunar Stone's offensive capabilities that might be the opening the fight's demand. Overwhelmed Larry finally has access to the ultimate they were looking for. The Fate of Both Worlds. It's plenty of sustainability. DRP's kicked away for a moment from the fight as it is a return off the back of that portal, but timing out here fine. Knows exactly when the Fate of Both Worlds ends, and now it's time to lay down the flame tornadoes, looking for a way to try and shut down Aura Stealer and Larry. But Team Peps have held strong in the midst of all of this. They've used their resources perfectly.
Rage of Ultron forces Fire to back on off. Supernova doesn't find the picks that it's looking for. Beetle almost bites off a little bit too much more than he can chew, and they're trying to find the Captain America, but he's stalling the push backwards because VP have ultimates. They answer back. The Eye of Agamotto from DRP finds Saipe, results into the pick on Invis, but Virtus Pro have already been able to bypass Peps' players, and they're on the objective.
They just run past, they get on top of it. It's a supernova, yes, but I'm afraid it's just going to be collapsing into a brown dwarf as Team Peps find their hopes scuppered. Aura Stealer will be returning, yes, and Larry going to be doing exactly the same, skating for the tournament life of Team Peps. The Polar Bears roar with victory as they finish off Symbiotic Surface and go deeper into our lower bracket.
Yeah, perhaps the second that they forced all of the ultimates to try and get those picks against VP, they know that they have to go aggressive. Beetle has to push for more to stop VP from regrouping, stabilizing, and then coming back in with 2 defensive ultimates of their own to win the brawl fight and just push over to that payload past all of the players on the defense to force their hand. Suddenly, you're not thinking about, I need to take the player down in front of me. You're thinking, oh, I need to get my body onto that point so that we don't lose off of a lack of presence. And that's exactly what VP are able to take full advantage of. It came down to it, like, B really was a tug of war, entirely unlike what we saw on A, which was just swept aside so cleanly. And you really can applaud Peps for holding on as long as they did. But in the end, Virtus Pro just having full understanding of the tempo that they could play to take the win.
Feels like Virtus Pro have such good pivots as well. They just poke at the front, force some resources over onto DRP while catching all of that. Maybe you see Peps making a move to try and win that aerial duel, but suddenly all 6 members of Virtus Pro are shooting at your back line, and we just see Steeler and Larry just being decimated constantly.
If it was, you know, Judo and Saipe coming on through with the MVP status in map 1 and map 2, it's Nepix map 3. That Captain America was able to force so many things, and even before we saw, it wasn't the last fight, it was the fight before where it's the exchange of the invis boundaries coming on out from Saipe and Aura Stealer. Aura Stealer's ultimate, the invis boundary, breaks the golden rule of thumb for strategists, which is it has to cover you, but it has to cover as much of the objective as it possibly can. That invis boundary from the defense was actually situated in the choke because of the amount of pressure that the Captain America was exuding. It barely covered the payload in comparison to Virtus Pro when they pulled back, waited out the 8-second duration, and came back in with their own. That entire objective was fully blanketed. It was direct center of the invis boundary from VP side.
Yeah, just making sure that vision being obscured. We've seen just how powerful, as well as the vulnerability that the Terra Cape blinds can have in pro play when you're so reliant upon that awareness and really able to leverage all of the senses that you have. When some of that is taken away, things start to get real complicated. Virtus Pro coming back with a banger, showing that they are far from down. But maybe a wounded bear, but a wounded bear might be the most dangerous animal in this forest.
Yeah, you do not poke a bear with a stick, and you absolutely do not poke Virtus Pro with a stick, because they come back with a vengeance. Every single time they've taken either a map loss or a full series loss, the next day we've seen them swinging back absolutely lethally, showing off new compositions, new understandings, new pivots, and new map plays too. Because, you know, we've talked a lot about how they have a couple of failures on domination. We didn't see that in Hell's Heaven today.
Yeah, certainly not. Really coalescing around that Fincy Emma Frost. Speaking of which, let's bring in the Queen King themselves. Fincy's here for an interview. It's glad to see your internet's working again, bud.
Yeah, thankfully it's working today, yeah.
Well, congratulations on the win, Finzy. Let's talk about AMER Frost, because it finally got banned against you guys on Symbiotic Surface. Was that something that you were anticipating to come through sooner?
Maybe not sooner, but we expected it on the 3rd map, since I was doing a lot the first 2 maps. And they kind of decided to shut that down, because I was winning the frontline battle like against 2 tanks just by myself. So they kind of had to ban the AMER at that point.
Keeping on the 3rd map here, we often saw both Aura Steeler and Larry going down at the same time very explosively. How are you guys as a team kind of manufacturing those double knockouts onto the enemy backline?
I do a lot of like 3-2-1s and dive the backline, and then in like when both teams are ulting, we just call one target and I try to grab it, or we all try to focus it with cloak blind or other abilities. So it's mostly just communication.
And was communication how you were able to deal with Beetle as well? Because a lot of the time we even actually saw you guys utilizing the Captain America on Symbiotic Surface, just pressuring the backline, permanently pushing them back. When we saw the performance on Spider Islands, it felt like you guys were really adept at just shutting the Captain America down immediately.
Yeah, if you don't focus the Captain America, like especially on payload, then he's just gonna stall it for a while. So you can't have to like at least 3-4 people focus the Captain quickly, get him out so he can keep moving and taking space.
After the tragic loss yesterday in the long series against Berber, were there any adjustments you had to make coming in for today, or was it just running some Ethernet cable?
Yeah, I just went to the store and bought a long Ethernet cable to run through my entire house. Like yesterday, I was DCing like at least half the maps. It was really rough. I don't really count that as a loss that much because I barely played the maps. So, I mean, we'll see when we play them again. It will be different now that my internet is working.
And Enzo said in the interview yesterday that the win that they were able to take against you guys was entirely different to the win that Rad were able to take. Do you agree? Do you think that Berber and Rad were like on the same level in terms of those defeats, or were the matches closer?
I think Enzo is right. Against Rad, when we lost, we read the meta very wrongly and we played horribly. But yesterday we played well. I think we should have won. We won way more fights, but they were good at stalling with ults and stuff, and I was DCing all the time, so I think it will be different next time we play them. But they did play well yesterday.
Oh, hoping we get to see that. Thank you so much for joining us, Fincy, and congratulations on being so back.
Thank you.
That was Fincy from the Virtus Pro.